Thank you. Welcome everybody to the Primary Care Commissioning Committee's meeting held in public. Do we have any apologies for absence, Val?
Yeah, Philippa Dodds and Michelle Stam.
Thank you. I can confirm that the meeting is quorate. Do we have any declarations of interest? No. Previous minutes of the meeting held on the 26th of October. I wasn't at that meeting. Can anybody confirm it's a true and accurate record of the meeting or raise any questions that they have? No. So everybody's happy to receive those as an accurate record of the meeting. There are no outstanding actions in the actions log, so we'll move swiftly on to item 6. Mandy, nice to see you. Haven't seen you for a while.
Hi.
Welcome to the committee, and over to you.
Thank you. Would you like me to, I know I sent a paper around, would you like me to share that on the screen, or has everybody got it in front of them? I'll just pull out a few key highlights.
Share the screen, shows your digital wizardry.
I mean, I'm sure everybody read it, of course.
No pressure.
I'll just share that if you just let me know when you can see that.
Yeah.
Great. So I think everyone knows me, but for anyone who doesn't, I'm Mandy Mitchinson, the strategic lead for digital in the CCG. I wasn't going to go through this line by line. What I've tried to do is just pull out really some key themes from sort of the vast quantity of work that we're covering in digital. I just wanted to pull out maybe a few key highlights, and then I'll just open up to questions if that's okay.
Yeah, that's great.
Great, thank you. So first of all, I think most of the work we're doing with the practices at the minute is really focused around what we're calling digital first primary care. So this is the interactions between patients and the practices, and this is the part that I think, because of COVID and just because of the national strategy, has seen the most change in the last few years. So we've seen huge advancements in how practices are using online consultations, video, messaging services and remote monitoring. But I think the focus of the team at the minute is really about taking a bit of a stock take on that, you know, so much change has happened, but actually, how do we support practices to the best effect to make them use these tools to really help what problems they've got? I know we hear from practices that there's a lot of issues with demand coming in, and sometimes these tools can perhaps contribute to that rather than help. So we're starting off some work which is about, you know, sitting with the practice and looking at, you know, how are they using these tools and really doing that stock take, like I say. So that's a real priority for the team. I think we have a lot of use of these now. We've got over 5,000 online consultations each month. It has embedded, it is a very routine way that patients now access their practice. So that's obviously very new and seen lots of change. But I think with that, one of my sort of personal priorities is around what we call digital inclusion. So how do we use these tools in a way that isn't missing anybody out? It doesn't disadvantage any part of our community or any individual, really. So we're starting some work with the councils and really trying to look at across the system, the health and care system in Newcastle and in Gateshead, how can we do something with our communities to maybe involve them a bit more and actually do some work to get out there in advance how people use the digital tools. And that's not really a health problem, that's just a population problem. So there's some really good joint work, and that's about to start with the councils, the voluntary sector, that sort of thing. So that's really exciting, but lots to do there. From an infrastructure point of view, so we've seen from an IT, you know, more the technical side, we've seen the way that our workforce uses equipment really change, again, because of COVID. So we've rolled out a lot more laptops. So we've now got a workforce potentially who can be more mobile and perhaps work from wherever they are. And I think that's a real positive thing. But again, we need to do that stock take and see how do we use all of that equipment to potentially address some of the pressures in the system. So can we maybe attract more workforce into primary care by allowing them to be more flexible, work from home, that sort of thing. So there's a lot to do there with laptops, but I think that could be a real asset to some of the problems we've got. And I think telephony is a big area of focus as well for us. So I think we've identified that We're seeing a big demand in practices at the minute, and how, that front door is obviously their telephone system right now. And I think some of the practices who are on older systems are perhaps struggling, and others who've invested in more advanced systems have got a lot more opportunity to use their systems to help with that. So we're looking at how we can help practices to move on to new systems. And I think that's something that we're looking to invest in, or just had approved today, I understand. So we'll be able to start bringing that on. And again, some of that is about sitting and working with practices to look at how they use the systems, what data have they got about the calls that are coming in, how they can match their workforce to that demand. And it's not going to solve the world, because of course, if you're just getting too many calls, you're getting too many calls. But I think that could be a real asset to the system as well. And then the other aspects that I've covered in the paper that I'm not really going to go into in detail, but feel free to ask me any questions about some of the points in this if you've got them. But I've got a coverage there about how are we using our software, our systems, and what we're doing to support practices with that. There's quite a lot of work going on around care homes, and I'm working really closely with the place-based teams to do that work. And we are involved in quite a lot around the wider system. So how are we communicating between the practices and the other parts of the system, and sharing records? And I didn't want to miss that off, because that's a really crucial aspect of what we do. And I think they're the key things I wanted to pull out. So if it's okay, can I open up to questions?
Please do, Mandy, yeah. One of my questions then is about are we recognising any savings through our digital rollout, actually, within our systems? I can remember watching Tomorrow's World as a boy when I was told computers were going to free up so much time. We'd all have working 3 days a week, and we'd have a life of leisure. Yeah, so we don't often realise the benefit of, we don't see the benefits measured in numbers of digital rollouts.
I think that's a really good question. I think that's a real challenge. We haven't measured, I couldn't tell you a number, certainly from a monetary point of view, of some of the benefits of the work that, the advancements we've made with digital. I think it's really, really difficult to pin down. I think there's a lot of claims that can be made about, for example, how we use online consultation, and that was supposed to save a lot of time. But then you hear the reality on the ground is that feels very different. Perhaps it's adding some work to practices in a way that weren't anticipated. So I think it's really hard to quantify. And I think some of the savings potentially might come in about developing efficiencies. So there are some opportunities coming around the likes of something called robotic process automation. So that's really the next step with digital. So it's looking at how do we use artificial intelligence, that sort of thing, to automate processes. And I think what you'll see there is some real efficiencies that hopefully will help free up time. But again, it's really hard to quantify what that would free up in terms of money.
Dominic.
Yeah, so just to give some sort of clinical insight into how some of these innovations are transforming practice, thinking of the last box, the health information exchange, which has been live for some time now, allows me in a consultation to check what results, what blood tests, what investigations, what x-rays or CT scans have been done when a patient tells me they were at the hospital earlier this week. I can now see that, or the hospital can see what investigations I've asked for. I can see the correspondence, I can see the future appointments. And what that does is it saves me duplicating things when I've got the answers that another member of the health system has already explored. So that's amazing to be able to do that. It's also amazing to promote the NHS app to patients, to say, actually, you don't have to wait for half an hour in a phone queue to get through to find out what your blood results are, because you'll be able to see them on the app. You can book an appointment on the app. You can see what we said in our consultation on the app. And there's a lot of uptake, and not just amongst those groups that you traditionally think of as the digitally literate. It is often older people who are housebound, and they find this new way of being able to access information about themselves and to communicate with the health service actually quite liberating. So I think, you know, it's no surprise that on the ICS board deliberations that there is a proposal for a digital league, because I think it's organic, it's iterative, but I think it is nevertheless revolutionary and transformative, and that's just, you know, from my own experience of practice.
Thank you. The next question then, Mandy, is I don't see on our corporate risk register the risks from home working and from the digital rollout of flexible working, and those risks being not just GDPR and data breaches and people operating at home with, you know, with their screens potentially open and their who's in the house and all the other things, and if that hardware is stolen, if there's a theft from the house and all that sort of stuff. And the other side of that is the display screen equipment checks and all the health and safety checks at home for the workforce who are often working in inappropriate desk environments. So is that something that's within your work stream, or is that something I need to escalate up to the CCG governance lead?
I think some of it probably is. I'm not sure that the workstations is. I think that's probably Neil from a CCG point of view. And I think from a risk, there probably are some aspects we could pull out into the risk register. I think some of it is mitigated through, you know, the fact that all of the staff who are using this equipment have all had the IG training that should cover off, you know, them sharing their screen, that sort of thing. But you will obviously inherently be sitting in an environment where others could be around doing clinical work. So, of course, that could be added to the risk register.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions? No? Well, yeah, it's been you've probably done 10 years work in the last year, Andy, in the digital.
Well, yeah, I feel like I can retire. We have we've done quite a lot.
Yeah. So thank you very much. Thank you for bringing that to us.
Thank you.
Okay. Item 7 is the SERMS out of hours. And Kirsty, are you there? Just
I am, yes.
Yeah, thanks. Would you like to present that to us?
Will do. I'll be quick because I'm mindful of the time. We've had discussions recently in the CCG with regards to the benefit of the out-of-hours services in both Newcastle and Gateshead reporting incidents on SERMS to provide us with rich intelligence on patient safety issues or gaps, failures in clinical pathways, systems and processes. However, both of these providers are independent organisations and have ultimate responsibility for managing their own incidents and having appropriate processes in place. So what we've done is we have contacted both providers to discuss their current incident reporting processes and asked them if they would consider implementing SERMS if funding was potentially provided by the CCG. When we spoke to Gateshead CBC, they advised that they don't have a current, they don't have an electronic incident reporting system, and they would be very interested in accessing SERMS. They also advised that they would be interested in some of the other modules, but recognised that the CCG could only potentially fund the incident reporting element. But there was also the question, because there's the initial setup costs, but then there's also ongoing support costs each year. So that was a question that Gateshead CBC raised. Vocare, there was no appetite for them to implement SERMS because they currently use Datex, and they're tied in a contract. However, what they are keen to do is work with us to share their incident data, but that would involve the manual upload of incidents to SERMS to enable us to, to capture that information. So the purpose of this paper is obviously to outline the current reporting processes, but then also ask if the committee would be willing to approve the funding for the provision of SERMS to Gateshead CBC. It is an initial cost of £3,279, which includes the setup costs plus the ongoing annual support for 1 year. This will be delivered to Gateshead CBC on behalf of the CCG by NEX, and this covers training, setting up the team on the system, setting up a suite of reports, as well as also reporting any incidents that managing any incidents that they report about providers. So what we would do is, like we do with GP practices, so if they report an incident, say for example about Gateshead Health, we would make sure that that's forwarded for investigation. It would be included in the triage, as it would with any, the primary care incidents. We would also review any internal incidents reported by the out-of-hours service, and if it met the threshold for serious incident investigation, we would support them so that it was then declared as an SI and then came in line with other processes. And that's currently something that we're not aware of. We don't know what their incidents, what they report. With regard to Vocare, as I've mentioned, that they have no appetite to implement SERMs, but this could, we could take this forward with them. But we'd have to scope it to see what the volume of the incidents are. But again, it would involve manual input. And once those incidents were inputted on the SERMs, then what we could do is we could process them as we would any other incidents that's been reported. So, as I say, the purpose of this report is to ask the committee if they would support the provision of SERMs to Gateshead CBC, and then also discuss and confirm whether they would like to progress the scope and work with Vocare with regard to their incident reporting system, and if there's any merit on getting it put onto SERMs.
Thank you, Kirsty. Dominic.
So it's in our interest as a commissioner to know what the safety or what the near miss type incidents are, and to have that in a standardized format. But I also think it is a reasonable requirement of any provider that we commission care from to have that system themselves as a prerequisite of being a provider, that they have a standardized mechanism of reviewing any incidents that happen and report them to us as the commissioner. So my initial thinking is that yes, they do need to have this, and I want them to have it, and I'd be more than willing to sort of support the setup costs. But I do wonder whether the ongoing costs should actually be met by the provider as part of their contract. It's not a lot of money for a provider to spend £989 a year to assure us of the safety and the quality of the work that they're doing, that we are paying for. Is sort of my thought at the moment, but I think it's in our interest to have that information. So I'm happy to pay for the setup costs, would be my first thought, and I'm happy to scope whether Vocare would be better off using this system.
I think as well, though, Dominic, what they will be getting out of, or what the SERM system will provide, what they currently don't have, is the links in that we have with the providers, so that they will be getting a response to the incidents that they report about, external providers, which currently they have no provision set up. So whilst they manage their internal incidents, they don't have a mechanism of sharing it with other providers.
And that's important, because SERMS is not just about your internal quality assurance. It's about incidents that you recognise, maybe the ambulance trust or the foundation trust or a primary care provider. You can report those incidents as well, which joins it all together very helpfully.
Yeah. I would assume that this the contract value of this contract is not insignificant, and obviously I'm not going to discuss contract values in a public meeting, but I would also assume that there is an administration and management fee charged within that contract by the contract holder. and I would support Dominic's view that this kind of governance and assurance tool should be included in their management fee going forward. And yeah, okay, getting it set up is one thing, but the ongoing costs, I think, I would agree with Dominic, should be supported by the contract holder. And certainly, when we're looking at going out to procurement in future areas for primary care contracts or for any out of hours contracts, it's got to be written in to the contract. The system has got to be named, doesn't it, and written into the contract. Bill,
you just made my point. Thanks, Chair.
Okay. Anybody have anything else that they wanted to discuss or add? Jill, anything from finance?
No, I'm happy with the comments that have been made so far.
Okay. So just to be clear, Kirsty, we're being asked to approve the setup costs, and we're also being asked to approve the ongoing costs.
Yeah.
So first of all, are the committee in agreement to approve the setup costs?
Yes.
So that's a unanimous decision to approve the setup cost of 3,000 and how much? Sorry, Kirsty, I just don't have it on the screen.
£3,279. That includes the setup costs plus the initial support for a year. So for a year, we will, process any incidents that they've reported and make the links with the relevant providers and give them advice on their internal incidents as well, particularly if they meet a serious incident criteria.
Thank you. And 3 voting members have already expressed their view that they shouldn't be supporting the ongoing costs. Is that the same view from the other members?
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you. So it's a unanimous decision not to fund the ongoing costs for the implementation of service. And you'll have to go back and put that to the provider and see if they're still willing to take it on, won't you?
And there might be a contracting action to go. So Val, there might be an action to go to Colin Smith to see whether we could write that into the contract, because I think it should be, as other members have said, part of a rolling contract that is built in, that there needs to be a quality assurance with serious incident, significant incident reporting mechanism as part of that quality assurance.
Okay.
Thank you. Anything else, Kirsty?
Can I just clarify that we should go and do some scoping to get some information with regard to VOCare and the volume of work and what it would entail to get the incidents put onto SERMS? Yep. Yep,
that's nods and thumbs up from everybody on the screen. Yep. Yes, please.
That's great. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good evening.
And you, thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. The last item is any other business. Does anybody have any other business?
No.
No. Well, thank you, everybody, as always. A short meeting this time, which is unusual for us. But thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you all on the 21st of December.
Thanks, Joe.
Yep.
Bye.
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 Bye-bye now. Bye.